one.
Oh, look at the little kitty.
Yep. That's the closing the show kind of thing. It's nice, the cat going to sleep. But we are live right now, so all right, everybody.
Okay.
We are. It is currently Sunday, May 27th, 2018. It is 5:01 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You're with Education by Ed, which means Ed, take it away.
Thank you. Anyhow, first off, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us and participating in the education. We always learn more and more new things all the time, and we pass it on to you as we learn. Because, we got a lot of people out there on Facebook and the internet selling these programs, selling what they call information, and most people who follow these people end up in jail. And so that's the whole point. We're not out there trying to put you in jail. We want to prove that circumstances because we don't like it. We know you don't like it. So, the whole point is not to push the envelope to put us in these positions. And so, or you in that position, as a matter of fact, because we don't want that. But we're going to get into interesting things because yesterday we had a very lovely conversation dealing with courts around the country. We're still doing that. We'll have other emblems, and there's more than one court that's built like a ship around, so we'll be putting those up and setting its own link on Facebook. So we'll get those things out to the general public, so this way people know about the Tribunal Maritime Courts. And it even states it in the Black Law Dictionary, and when you read some of these court structures of them in their own areas, it actually says it in the paperwork of the courts. And so tonight's deal is that we're going to be working this week next weekend. I'm taking the weekend off because I got some issues I have to take care of, and I thought I would be able to be doing Saturday and Sunday, but it would not only I wouldn't be able to focus correctly, and then I'll be taken away from the circumstances of what I'm doing next week. So I don't want to get into that, but, life has its challenges. And so with that, we're going to be, taking a little time off and then looking at some other things. So it's like the one thing, too, is that I've got another court case that I've had sent to me, filed in 2010. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I want to get into jurisdiction tonight. And this is where, people realize, because, everybody knows I talk about the bloodline and preach on the bloodline, but how the hell is that going to work in these British maritime courts? Remember, these courts are not American courts unless you're in an Article 3 court, and that's sometimes hard. And one thing you do is the first thing we'll have a template. I will have a template set up by the following week. A couple of them set up on jurisdiction. Mandatory question jurisdiction right off the bat when you get any of these traffic violations, your child support cases, whatever. Challenge their jurisdiction. You have to challenge your jurisdiction. Otherwise, you get steamrolled. You got to remember, these men and women don't believe in God. Or if they believe in the same God or read the same Bible as you do, well, you got to step out of the movie and watch the production of the reality of what's going on around you. So, it's not picking on people who have their religious belief because the Constitution gives every man, woman, and child the equal right to have religious belief with a child by their permission of their parents. And that's the one thing that people have got to comprehend. The child doesn't have these democratic devil rights that these people shove you down your throat saying the child is above you. Your child does not need to listen to you. These men and women lie, cheat, and steal. It's like when they're putting all these gay and lesbian programs into the schools. California put in a structure, if your kid does not attend the transgender brainwashing to program your kids to be gay and lesbian, because seeing that these programs started existing in the last 20 years, we've had a substantial increase of children becoming gay and lesbians that probably wouldn't be if they didn't have it shoved down their throat and led by a hook nose and or spoon-fed on this stuff. Remember, this stuff is spoon-fed to these kids. These kids wouldn't know this stuff unless they were educated in it. It's that simple. See, that's the one thing I just don't comprehend, how people don't see the truth in the matter of what's going on in their own homes, their own circumstances, their own structure of what's going on in their own communities, in their own schools. I mean, and so with me, I just look at it that you people, the people that allow this to happen, they want this to happen to their children. You know, they're not taking responsibility of their children. They're not educating their children. They're not sitting there, you know, telling their kids what's going on. They're not teaching them the Constitution or the rights of the courts. And I mean rights of the courts. Your courts are your courts. You own these courts. You have to file, and every time you deal with these courts, challenge jurisdiction immediately. So if you don't challenge jurisdiction, you're allowing these men and women to dictate to you of how to flush your toilet, how to use water, how to feed and eat in your own home, how you're educating and teaching your own children. These men and women don't care about you. And as soon as you start comprehending that these men and women don't care about you, your school teachers, your principals don't love your children. They sure don't love you because they make a living off of you. They don't care about you. I know, I've been there. I've recalled school board members. I've gone after their budgets and proved how they embezzled funds. And then they try to take me out because I proved the fraud. This is real, folks. So once you start comprehending this stuff, and I don't like the word understand because, like I was talking to somebody, I will not kneel to anybody. I won't do it. I won't kneel to a pope, pastor, church, or I won't even kneel to the pope. I wouldn't give the pope that type of credit. The pope is a man. He ain't no man of God. He's a man of Satan, and he even admits it too. So when people start realizing what these things are going on in your community and what's going on in your state, it's like jumping off here a little bit. It's like the state of Oregon, and it's like the state of your state. State of Oregon just came up that, now they got a $4.9 billion reserve funding. They're trying to figure out how they can embezzle and spend and put it in their pocket. But they just asked for $18 billion in taxes. All right, they have, basically $5 billion in their coffers, and that's what just proves to me how ignorant people are. Oh, we need to help these other people out. We need to do this. We need to do that. You don't need to do any of this. The money is already there. People say, well, I need to pay my property taxes. I've got to pay schools. No, it does not. Why don't people read administrative rules? Why don't people read the actual laws? That's what stuns me, how people don't read stuff. Or they'll take somebody else's word for something and they can't verify it. And I'm going to jump off on this tangent right now to bring this a point to you. It's like, and I was just talking to somebody dealing with Anne von Ritzingen, the woman that has 5 different names who took a blood oath to the Vatican. Yeah, she's proud. She's put her own blood oath up on the internet, Facebook, put it out there. And not only I, but now a couple other people have done this. It's like I said to Anne, prove what you say. I want to see it in writing that you're a judge. I called the state of Alaska, and nobody heard of you in the court system up there. So prove it. And I've emailed her that a couple weeks ago. I emailed it out to several hundred people where, it's proving the facts. See, I don't sit there and state at all, that I'm a public figure. Why would I want a title of nobility? Why would I give my rights over to the Vatican or to a senator, congressman, or to administrative rule of some city? So when you are claiming that you are a public figure, you're saying that, you're taking a title of nobility. So in other words, you don't have rights. You gave your rights over to the state corporation. That's what it really means. It amazes me because I've talked to many people today. I've been on the phone. When I got up this morning, I had some chores I wanted to get done, and then I ended up spending 5 hours on the phone with a lot of people and going through this with people. And then it's interesting when people come up with this, and it's like, I got to clarify. you need and have to qualify and clarify these men and women of their oath number 2. First, you always mandatory challenge the jurisdiction of the court. We'll have challenge the jurisdiction of the court here by the following week. We'll have all the court structures laid out. And you want the judge to put it in writing what court you're going into and what jurisdiction, under what flag, and what symbol of that flag you're going into. So you want them to prove it. And this is a point that was sort of stuns me with people, how they're not willing to go out and have these men and women prove these things, but they're willing to take a lot of stuff for granted or hearsay and use the hearsay for their own personal and financial gain, as some think they're doing. And then you find out that some of the stuff that you do, and a lot of these other people that are out there giving public information out or putting this stuff out on Facebook, and, you know, when they're charging you for stuff now, I don't have a problem in a sense for charging somebody, but I do until you win your court case. Okay? If you haven't won your court case or won something like that, you need to sit there and help somebody else out when you win. Pay back to what you received. See, those type of things happen and help out to all of us. You know, when people sit there and put this up, my machine is really slow right now, so give me a minute when it catches up, I'll get the message. But the thing that you have to realize on these circumstances of these things, what's going in your courtroom, what's going in, remember, you are the court, you are the owner, you are the structure of this country. And so that is the point, that you have the structure here. That's the one thing. Once you start admitting that you yourself have the authority over your elected and public employees, and don't sit there and always yell, and I love it because people yell, I have constitutional rights. And believe me, I've been there myself. Okay? And the point is, we all have constitutional rights, but how is it being applied? Who's going to honor it? That's why we just put out a deal out to the elected and public servants dealing with that, asking them the jurisdiction of the flag. We want to know what the flag means. We want to know the structure of the flag. So we emailed that to House and Senators, and I've got some response, and we went through that, and I'll pull it up and read the stuff, once we put it on the internet, I'll go ahead and read from that structure from the military. That we got one. I'm supposed to get another one from a colonel, and a general's supposed to be coming back, I heard. We'll see what happens. But this is the whole point, that it's our responsibility of our courts. It's our responsibility to educate our children. And I had an argument with a gentleman earlier trying to convince me that we're still a British colony. And it's like, haven't you ever read the Constitution of the structure that says we're not to have anything to do with the British? Haven't you read the structure of congressional record that we are not part of any British colony? Oh, that doesn't matter. We're still a British colony. And it's like, no. Let me lay it out perfectly clear and comprehensible to the general public. If you are in their system and you don't own you are the slave. You have to file to own your child, your bloodline. You have to claim it before the state does. And we're going to finish up having some templates on that. We do have a few up, but I've got to re-go over them because I've had some other things of knowledge that was passed to me, so I have to do some correction on a couple of the templates I have put out because I got a little bit more information to put in it. Excuse me, and as well as rewrite part of it and make it more comprehensive so it's easier to comprehend. But we do have children today born without birth certificates as well. And that is the one thing, too, is that when they get a birth certificate, if you don't claim that birth certificate and you allow that birth certificate, you're giving your authority and your child over to the state attorney general and the Bar Association of your state. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, period. That's like if you're going to court, you're not challenging their jurisdiction. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday about that. Yeah, and we've been discussing that for several years, and he's been fighting his one case for 5 years. And he keeps going, well, I won the case, and I've done all this, I've filed all this. And I said, you still never filed it in the federal court. You never challenged the jurisdiction. And then he's telling me yesterday that, oh, now I've got to do this. And I'm asking him, hey, you know, I talked to you, and me and another gentleman wrote your case up to put in the Superior Court of Washington, D.C., the federal court, basically of Philadelphia, is the only real Supreme Court, Superior Court that I know of. But then again, I've been informed that they're in all the courts, but it's knowing how to put the paperwork in. So, life isn't a learning experience on these things, as you and I are both learning. That's why we're out here passing the information out to one another. So once we start putting this information out and we know what's going on, and we're sitting there protecting our bloodline, our children, and knowing that when you go to these courts, I don't care if it's a traffic ticket, you challenge jurisdiction immediately, or you take that court to the Secretary of State and you have them pay you for it. Because technically, if you do the research, which I've done, the cop wrote you a check. They're not going to tell you that because they don't want you to know this stuff. They don't care about you. I don't care if they've been there and helped you out in a situation. Remember, they get paid by your Social Security number, period, to do what they do. It's written off of your Social Security number when they come to your door. They bill you on your property taxes, and they bill your children off your Social Security number. And that's the way it really works. It's not a game. To some it's not a game. To others it is a game. And it is horrifying that people don't sit there and realize how severe these things are. That's why I always ask people and suggest to people to watch a movie called Interstate 60. It does explain your court system very, very well. When you watch it, you'll see where they admit that it's all a joke in the court systems. Everybody knows it's a lie and a fraud. The judge, the attorneys, the bookkeeper, everybody admits it's a fraud. They know it. That's why it's so superior that you have to and you need to challenge this jurisdiction of the court. And even when it comes to child support, and even when it comes to divorce, see, that's the one thing that I suggest when people do a marriage contract, and I'm almost finished with that template. Do a marriage contract. I don't care if you're gay or lesbian, whatever. Do a marriage contract between you and your partner or whatever. That is your responsibility. When you get a marriage license, you're asking permission to fornicate under the consent of the king or the queen, as we have today, as we don't have. They have, the British government. Let me correct my statement. And that's the one thing. You're asking permission to be in a relationship. People say, I have this right. Technically, I learned that one, and people learn that when they go into a divorce court. You realize that you have no rights. You gave your authority to that court because of that piece of paper asking privilege and permission. Still, a license is no different than a driver's license, fishing license, anything. You're asking permission. And so that's what sort of stuns me, how when the writing's on the wall, how people do not comprehend that right in front of their face. That's the one thing I do suggest, too. When you're putting your affidavits together, publicize them. To make it clarify, if you're putting an affidavit together and you want to make sure it's publicized, make sure you hang it up in the county commissioner's office, the city hall. Personally serve one to the county commissioner's office and your city mayor, the county commissioner, or city council. Make sure it's served to the newspapers. Maybe they might print it under the Public or Freedom Information Act. Sometimes they'll do it. Most of the time they want money today because they don't get the money like they used to on the write-offs they used to be able to do. Because Obama was the one who really took all the write-offs. Remember, it got so bad when Obama was in office that everybody had to pay their campaign trails instead of writing it off in taxes. Obama took that whole structure 100% away from the people. So this is the point that when you step out of the movie and watch the production and watch the mechanisms of how things are going, it's so simple. It's like, we were showing that yesterday with Florida. The buildings is no different than a ship. A lot of your state capitals, your state administrative buildings today around the country, they have different, I would say, devilicious points of view in their buildings when you walk in. A good one is Arizona. I'm in Arkansas, Arkansas Capitol. You walk in Arkansas Capitol, it's all about the devil structure and the models that they have right there in the building. And all that is true. And see, this is the one thing that people have got to realize that we're going through. And how we're being invaded, too, by immigrations and immigrants that are just coming over the border and taking your food. Taking your structure for your children, for your child care and stuff like that. These immigrants don't have rights. We don't want them. We never invited them here. The United States is not, for the people, America is not open to the rest of the world. And it's like people have got to open their mind to the truth instead of what they think is going on. See, it is so frustrating. We're all living this stuff. And, we get all this stuff that we're told that we're supposed to be protecting all these other people in the world. How come it is the people of this country's responsibility to protect terrorists or immigrants from other parts of the world? It's like I have said many times. Immigration, you jump the fence. Hey, we have a right to defend our home, our country, our seat. I get so sick and tired of these whiners out there because I can't sit there and walk in your home, sit in your chair, take your remote, grab your beer or your wine, whatever you have, and tell you, hey, you're out of here. I do that, you'll probably shoot me. This is the point. I don't comprehend how people cannot live in reality, how people were willing to give away their bloodline or to have their child murdered for a foreign immigrant. To me, it's unthinkable, and that happens all the time. And then there's another news story I want to bring up to you. I read today on yournewswire.com. Puget Sound mussels test positive for opiates nowadays. Well, it makes me wonder, the pharmaceutical company in Seattle does make you wonder where they put all their garbage that they do when they make the stuff. Apparently, they put it in the Puget Sound and it runs right off there. Sort of a little hard to do that when you think about it. Of course, I know I am on the Oregon coast in Yaquana Bay, and I know that one of the cities, when their sewer overflows, they flush it deliberately in the river to the ocean. And they do it all the time. And they call it an accident. And so when you think about these things that they do, it's unthinkable and unfathomable. Why would you sit there and flush shit in your food resources? Why are you sitting there pumping these chemicals in the ocean and bay instead of having them destroyed firely? You could destroy them by fire and they become in existence. So we have solutions like in the courtrooms or the chemicals or these things. Radiation, we can't do that. We can't do that with radiation, but we can do this with other stuff. And to bring it up, I'm on the West Coast. We got nuclear plants here that are dead and leaking right in the rivers and soil. With Fukushima, I believe it's already been done. They dumped one of the reactors in the ocean. And, you could type in on the internet, Oregon Coast nuclear meters, and people are sitting on the Oregon coast with nuclear meters on the coast taking the Geiger counters on the radiation. So we're losing all this stuff, and we're bringing the children into this stuff without educating them in the court system, without educating them properly in the structure in their own life around them, how these things affect them. You know, and the main thing that the children need to be educated on first is how the terroristic court system works. Because remember, these are terrorists that are running these court systems. These are not men and women. Men and women usually have feelings, emotions, and a conscience. These people in your court system don't have a conscience. That's why it is mandatorily, I suggest, that you question their jurisdiction. Ask them what jurisdiction. Ask them what flag they're flying. Ask them the certification of the flag they're flying. See, this is one thing that people are not comprehending, these truths and these facts of what's going on around the people. But people are just so, and I don't like putting the word ignorant, because not everybody's ignorant. So many people just like to put their head in the soil and think that it's just going to go away and go by. Well, not everything goes by. That's the one thing that most people don't comprehend. They live in fantasy. So until you sit there and comprehend these structures that are in front of your face for your bloodline, remember, your children is your bloodline. It's not my bloodline. It's not somebody else's bloodline. So that is the one thing that most people don't comprehend, this reality. And so when they do, sometimes it's a little too late. And so by doing this stuff, it is getting this out, so that way you have the facts of the truth of the information. And that truth and facts of the information is what your responsibility is to tell the children. You have to tell the children. Nobody else has an authority or ability to tell the children unless you do. And that's the one thing that the whole point about the education that we do here is to teach you what we're learning, so that way you can pass on to your children. You can write your instruments, you know, and that's the one thing. I was talking to a guy, you know, today. It's like, you know, oh, I'm getting ready to put all these motions in. And I said, motions? Why are you going in the ocean? How come you're not challenging the judge? How come you're not asking for his oath of office? How come you're not asking if it's a true oath of office? So that's the one thing that sort of stuns me, how people don't comprehend these things. When you see the court system that bluntly brings these things out to the general public, how come people are not questioning that structure to the people? See, this is the things that I question, and when I see this stuff, how come other people are not questioning this stuff? That's sort of what stuns me with people. That's sort of what brings me to the structure of what, why, and how. And that is the one thing that people need to question, their structure of what, why, and how. Their employees, what, why, and how. Remember, these elected and public servants are employees to we the people. And if you don't question them, who else is going to do it? Nobody is going to do it, but you have to do it. And this is the point that is working together. Now, I've been talking to a couple new groups here recently. They want to be able to work together and get some more information out to their followers. And I said, fine, we can tag team and work this stuff out. You know, and that's what we're going to start doing here in the next couple of weeks, I hope. We'll see what happens. But I've talked to many groups, and then when you start preaching the truth, most people can't handle the truth. That is the saddest part about this reality. Most people cannot handle the truth. You know, and it's one of those things that, how do we expect these children to know what their standing is, to know what their circumstances are? I mean, I watch a lot of these other talk shows and these people that try to keep people literally in the system. You know, that's why, you know, I was talking to a gentleman today, and we got talking about alleged Judge Ann Rietz. Ritz, whatever name. She's got 5 different names she goes by, people. She literally has 5 different names. She has taken a blood oath to the Vatican. She's publicly admitted on her own show and stuff like that. So it is interesting when you got these people out there that are trying to teach you as they claim, but they're leading you to the slaughter. You know, that's the saddest part. How many of these people have been led to the slaughter? And so you got to look at these things of the truth of the reason why, and the truth of the circumstances of what, why, and how. And so, see, once we start battling this structure, and we've got this stuff down to the core, basically, of how to solve these problems. Remember, man creates problems for himself, and that's the truth. Problems are created by man. You know, statute codes, administrative structure, written by man. So, and then they want you to participate in their structure. That's why, you know, I have my signs up on my land telling the government employees, you don't have a right to talk to me. I don't want you on my land. I don't want to talk to you. Oh, technically, I don't want to contract with you. And once people start comprehending that, and you start doing that and start realizing you don't want to contract with these public employees, because you don't have to contract with a cop. A cop cannot bring you in his jurisdiction. I post that up all the time, the actual law. It's in the newsletter I put out every week. They cannot bring you in their jurisdiction, but people think that, and I've been there. I did that one time. I know this, I know that, and I took over the right to talk to the cop, and I ended up talking to him. He left the property, and, you know, then I realized that, oh, well, why the heck did I even talk to him and waste my time? Why did I just tell him to get the hell out of here to begin with and not contract with him? The minute you open your mouth to a public servant, you are already admitted to go forward in a contract. So you want to clarify that, and you always want, when you talk to these men and women, put it in writing. And you want them to put it in writing so you're not contracting with them. Okay? I mean, all these talk shows out there, I mean, you know, they all sit there and feed people all this garbage, you know, and everybody's out there talking, but nobody is out there giving you the way to solve your problems, your court issues. And at least we're able to provide some information. We're collecting enough basically brainy people on the subject, you know, putting our brains together so we can sit there and put the groups together. Eventually we're going to sit there and put all these groups together so we can meet on the same, when we come up, we put the same structure out on their sites, our sites, you know, because it's our responsibility. I mean, because I'll be darned if I'm going to sit there and kneel or bow or plead to any man, woman, or ghost. It don't work that way. I've never been that way. I'm not going to do it now. And so, and the other thing, too, if you're out there calling yourself a public figure, you have taken a title of nobility. Did you get authorization from Congress on it? So a public figure is a title of nobility. That's why I won't do that. I won't claim myself a public figure. I won't claim myself an activist. What am I an activist of? The only activist I do is for me, myself, and I. So, and when it comes down to it, me, myself, and I don't mind, you know, helping people out, but I'm not going to be classified as an activist, a domestic terrorist. That's what the FBI classifies domestic terrorists. They really do, folks. It's not a joke. See, when you step out of the movie and you watch the production on how these things work, how these things are presented to we the people, and that is the one thing that you have to realize, that these things are to we the people. You know, it brings out a whole bunch of facts to the general public. And that's the one thing that you want, the facts. You want to ask that judge, what gives him the jurisdiction over you? You want to figure out what jurisdiction that he's claiming. You know, we're still getting information on the flag. And so, and that's the one thing, some of these public servants are skirting around the issue. Some are passing the buck as fast as they can. Because they don't want you to know the truth, because otherwise they couldn't make the money they're making. And remember, these people don't love and care for you. All they want is money. And if you actually read the Bible, it says the root of all evil is money. I don't see how people don't get it. What was the guy who did Soylent Green, actor? He did Moses. I'll think about it here in a minute. But when he did the structure of Moses, when they were trying to get him to come out and say a different word, he said, the root of all evil is money. It clearly states the root of all evil is money. So when you realize that the root of all evil is money, and we do have the structure of the photograph when they're using the bull in the structure of it, going back to the Bible structure, and then look at the bull that's right on Wall Street. I just have difficulties when people cannot put things together in front of their face when things are right and correct in front of their face. So, I mean, life is that simple. Life is right in front of your face. That's where it's stunning to me how people will sit there and don't challenge jurisdiction. They don't challenge a public servant. Everybody says it's easier, most people say it's easier to pay the court system off than it is to defend their families. And so they don't want the hassle, so it's easier to pay them off. So I get stunned with that when people sit there and go, well, we just want to pay them off, we just don't want to deal with them. And see, that's what stuns me when people do that. How do people do that and live with themselves, especially do that to their own children? It is a stunning circumstance that people do that. It's just amazing that people sit there and do that. They won't challenge the court system. They won't challenge jurisdiction. They won't challenge the public servant. But then again, they're willing to go pay off their structure. And when you pay off these court fees or your building permits or anything dealing with the public, elected and public servants, you got to realize you're already in that database. You're already telling the people you're willing to sell your soul. Exactly what it means. They'll pay. I mean, I'm dealing with property taxes right now. You know, and that's tied into the birth certificate bond and all the other, stuff that goes on. I'm not going to sit there and cooperate. I have public servants. Why am I going to cooperate with domestic terrorists? And that's what these men and women are, domestic terrorists. And as soon as you start putting that structure together and accepting that these men and women basically come down to the major structure as terrorism, this is how we're going to beat these people. I watch these people all the time saying, we're going to do this, we're going to win this case, we're going to do that. And I haven't seen anything. And so the main point is challenging the jurisdiction of these domestic terrorists. And as soon as people start challenging the jurisdiction of these domestic terrorists, challenging the courts, where the courts get their authority. Where does the court get its authority? So that's the one thing that people have to realize. Where does the court get their authority? By you. When you walk in, that's where we just had the deal where we got the message from one of the military gentlemen in the state of Oregon. And we were discussing that and showed that last evening. And he said, basically, what it comes down to it, you walk in that courtroom, you leave your basically, you walk in the public building, you leave your Constitution at the door. That's why that's one thing I won't sit there and go to these public meetings. Well, I consider going to public meetings, but I'm not going to go in the county seat and that type of thing, because you walk in, you give your authority over. And I know this. So the one thing is that I have actually been elected and public servant, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I've recalled public servants. I've proved sometimes where money went to. And that's why I've been severely attacked. And I know the loss that people go through this. I really do know the loss that we go through on these things. Lived it, lost my family over standing up for people's rights. Of course it ain't right. But, when you are basically the Lone Ranger in these situations, there's a lot of us out there that are in this situation called basically the Lone Ranger. How do people expect people to comprehend not helping one another, but you're willing to go out and help somebody from another country, an immigrant, a terrorist? That's what I'm saying. Where do you go? Everybody says, well, let the immigration come in this country. Fine. Move them in your home. Let them rape your children and your women personally, because the rest of us don't want them around. We don't. We didn't invite them to this country. They came to this country on their own to rape, rob, and pillage. And that's the one thing that we have to realize, that these men and women came to this country not for us, not for we the people. They came here to take from us our food, our shelter. And everybody goes, well, we need to have immigrants to pick the fields. Well, I used to do that. Lived in the Bay Area. San Jose was the biggest one thing where all the kids growing up around me, and that time, what was it? They would go out in the field and pick garlic and got paid for it. That's how most of us earned our bikes, shoes, clothes. Say, a lot of us didn't have, what some kids have today called what they call wealthy parents. But say, that's the whole point. We're not out there trying to do all this stuff to get all this stuff out to the general public in confusion. We want to make sure that for you, that you know your rights to protect your bloodline. And you can go into court and yell all your constitutional rights. Hey, yeah, let's yell for our constitutional rights. So we're going to get all of our constitutional rights intact, and it always amazes me. Unless you have it proven that you have a right, you go in that court, you can yell and scream all you want, but you ain't going to get anything. Because that judge is going to look at you and go, what? And I have a right for what? You're in my courtroom. You're in my home. You're in my house. And that's the way these judges look. That's why we put this stuff up. You can see the maritime ships in these things. Maritime courts, when you walk into a lot of these buildings, at least on the West Coast, you go into them, a lot of them have ships designed in the buildings. A lot of these public officials have ship models in their offices. All this stuff is real. That's where I just sort of stuns me, where people do not comprehend what the writing on the wall is in front of their face. Why don't people see this, the structure right in front of their face? It is amazing what goes on. It truly is amazing what goes on in our country. And that's the one thing. We have 48 states, Okay. This is the one thing. And that's the other point. Okay, like I said, we're not out here trying to make, to be rich on this stuff. We have bills too, but we haven't sat out there and asked people for handouts. People that want to help, they can let us know. We can put them in the right direction to, pay our water bill, electricity bill. We don't want your money. When it comes down to it, if you want to help, we'll put you on the right direction to pay a bill for us. Then that way, if you're doing it, you write it off. I don't care. I'm not part of the tax system. I don't want to be, never have, don't want to be a part of it. Don't want to join the stupidity of uneducated people on it. And that is the one thing, when you become educated and you realize that you don't have to pay court fees. You realize that you don't have to do these things. There's a lot of things that people realize that you don't have to pay. And so what sort of stuns me is when people sit out there and do this stuff, and then they want to have somebody else pay their fees. Whose fees? Who are you asking to pay a fee for? See, these are the things that I watch people all the time that says, you know, you need to pay this guy. He's going to protect you. Well, I've seen a lot of people on the internet, as a lot of us have, and we haven't seen these men and women pay things for people. We haven't seen people come out and do this stuff. We haven't seen people protect people. So when you start protecting people, that is the point that is going to land people in safety. And that is up to us to put our children in safety, to protect our children. That is your responsibility to protect your child. And so when we start protecting our children and we don't have conflicts of interest, hey, we're winning. And so once we start winning, that's how we're going to sit there and protect the children in these manners. And that's the one thing that people have got to accept is that when you're filing your paperwork in court, you challenge the jurisdiction. You get to know what the jurisdiction is. I do recommend that people read the court procedures of the district of the court you're in. Absolutely. So once you educate yourself and know the district you're in, and you get to know what you're able to stand up for, and you're able to do these things that you're able to produce factual evidence instead of hearsay. And that's the one thing that people have to realize when you go to court. When you open your mouth in that courtroom, it's hearsay. There is no evidence you're presenting unless it's written. And if it's not written, there is no evidence to present. So, and these are things that people have to realize how serious these things are that we are living. And people are living with their children and the circumstances around them. There are things that are realistically out there to protect you and your children. Real things. But the whole major point of those real things is what you need to bring out to protect your child and yourself. You need the research. Now, there's a lot of videos out there. And we know that. But you have to go through these videos. You have to determine who's telling the truth. There's a lot of reading, a lot of writing that goes on in these things. A lot. And there's a lot of us that comprehend these things. And once you comprehend these things and you get to know what the truth is, you know, everybody wants to keep the system going. A lot of people want to keep the system going, which sort of stuns me. Why are people doing that to destroy their bloodline? We don't need a lot of these systems out there that they've got out there. We really don't. I mean, and if people don't realize, since the 1970s, we have had a 1,000 increase of government. Because a lot of these public servants has been very interesting, because all these schools and university had all these jobs. Oh, that's right. They educated all these people in school and there was no jobs. And then everybody's panicking because there's no jobs out there. So what do? They created watershed councils and watershed boards. And I know, I've been on these damn things. Literally, I've been on these things. Been proven on these things. And those watershed councils is very interesting, because all those watershed councils that I was part of starting on the West Coast 20 years ago, everybody that's on them today, they're paid employees from Oregon State University, Portland University. There was no jobs when they got out of college. So because there was no jobs, then they put them on the tax roll. And then you're wondering why Kate Brown on the West Coast here is raising all these taxes. Crazy point of view. But the state of Oregon, this came out Friday and said they had $4.9 billion in reserves. And what did they say? Oh, we got to figure out a way how we can spend this quick so people don't know. And that's what they do. They look about spending this money so you don't know where they're spending it. Now, technically, the money in reserve, $4.9 billion, is supposed to go back to the taxpayers. You, the taxpayers. I'm not a taxpayer. But you, the taxpayer, that money is supposed to go back to you. So you figure that circumstances, $4.9 billion and a $3 million, but you figure in the taxpayers, there's probably 2.1 million people paying taxes in the state. It does make a thing where you look at things that you start going, And that's a shame that people don't put that part together. People do not figure this stuff out. And it's that simple to figure these things out. And it sort of stuns me how simple these things are to figure out, but nobody wants to stand up to it. And so when you're sitting there challenging the jurisdiction of the court, asking them, what flag symbol are you going into that court of? Because the ball, that is military flag. The spear is Roman Catholic Church. So I got it correctly. And we put this stuff up, and I believe it's on new.org and trackers. And a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, I do bring up on our new Oregon trackers on Facebook, United States for America, Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversight on Facebook, Civil War 1866, Lawful Bloodline American Facebook, and Recall Cape Brown Facebook. And a lot of these things are out there so we can sit there and get the information passed to us so we know the truth. It's like the thing that, we've got people out there questioning the vaccinations. And so seeing that some people have not heard response back from these other people, it's time to file criminal charges on them. And I mean the criminal charges right off the bat is, 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act. You want them to prove that they're registered agents. Because by law, if they don't register, they can't have or be in business. That is the law. Their administrative rule, law. And so once you comprehend how all this stuff works, and that's the one thing that gets to me on the birth certificate, Executive Order 2040. We've got this stuff up. I make sure people get it. I produce it for them. Executive Order 2040, and this is where I have fun with people say, I'm a national. A national of what? If you actually read Trading with the Enemy Act, and if you read Executive Order 2040, and you actually read the Bankruptcy Act, any citizen or national is an enemy to we the native people. We the people of this country. Simple. Very simple. But see, that's what sort of stuns me with people, how things are so simple and they don't sit there and get it. How simple life is. Life is simple, but people make it difficult. And that is the one thing people actually do make life difficult for themselves around them. We could actually stop this stuff. We could actually make sure these things don't happen around us. But the only way that's going to happen if we, the people, stop it. First, we have to challenge jurisdiction. Once you start challenging jurisdiction to these courts, they have to prove with jurisdiction. You want it in writing. I suggest that everybody mandatorily request the public servant, aka judge, their oath of office. The district attorney, oath of office. Public pretender, oath of office. You cannot proceed in a court case unless you have an oath of office. And the thing is that before even that happens, you want to make sure you question their authority. This is the one thing that people don't get. I mean, I watch a lot of these people on major news stations, and the way they talk about the Constitution, the way they talk about rights. Most of these people, 80%, 95% of them, don't have a clue of what's going on. They're just telling you what they've read or what they think. Well, when people think, that scares the hell out of me because, like I said, we want to see proof. Like I sent out to Judge Ann many times here in the last few weeks. Prove you're a judge. I mean, when I called the state of Alaska, the lady, when I talked to the clerk, she's going, who? You know, so, I mean, that spoke volumes to me. I don't know about the way you think, but that's like when this public employee writes to me and tells me that when you go into court, you leave your rights at the door. Doesn't matter what you think, what your opinion is. Remember, you're not entitled to have an opinion when you go to court. The judge's opinion supersedes your opinion. How simple is that one? That's why it is apparent. You challenge the jurisdiction and you want to make sure that that man or woman has a certified oath. And then you want to see if that certified oath is to the Constitution of the United States of 48 states, or is their oath of office very, very simple? Is their oath of office, to the British government? And yes, I mean, I just had a conversation with somebody this morning, and they're still trying to convince me, come on, Ed, you know we're a British colony. We have nothing to do. We don't have freedom. We're a British government. We have to bow our heads to the Vatican and the churches. We're a British colony. And I'm going, no, we're not. We've already proven that. We've already proven it in court. And I know that for a fact because I'm the one who wrote the structure for the Supreme Court dealing with the structure in the 48 states as lawful and legal when Judge Scalia was murdered. And I know who wrote that structure that had it for him and that he had before he went to Texas. I know personally who did it, me. I know personally who recommended me to do it originally. And that is confidential information. But that was actually from big players of their system. Because you have to realize that some of these big players in their system realize what's going on around them, that they have a realization that, oh my God, we realize this after the fact. You got to realize some of these people truly do know what they're doing. And some of these people truly have been walked through a fraudulent system. So they were educated wrong. I could have compassion for the wrongfully educated when they're honorable to admit to that fact. When people are out there saying, I don't have to admit to anything and I'm big, badder, and I'm above the Constitution and I'm above the Creator, the Great Spirit, or what others would call a God, because I go by, Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the Creator. I don't go by foreign structure. I go by what's on this soil, and that's a soil that came to this country. But that's my right, and that's your right to believe in what you want, so long as that you don't cause personal and property damage. And see, when you're not causing personal and property damage, a public servant has no right to talk to you. Technically, legally, realistically, they don't have authority to talk to you. And see, that's one thing that people, when they enter these conversations with public servants, you have to realize when you enter these conversations freely, you're entering into contract. I don't care if it's the lady at the water department. I don't care if it's the water department driver out there that's taking this structure out and bringing this stuff to the general public. You got to remember, these men and women are trained to look at your land to see that wait a minute, his house is dirty, he violated the deal. He violated the city ordinance because he farted in the wind. So you remember, city ordinances only affect elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters in all immigration. And don't affect we the people. And that one I have proven. I've even proven that you don't need building permits to build a home, to do the work on your own soil. I have proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Been there, done it. Even when they wanted to, oh, we're going to take you to court on it. And all right, let's go to court. And then the attorney calls me up and is very apologetic and goes, Ed, your check is waiting. We apologize. So once you comprehend that these men and women don't have authority over you, realistically, then you win. But see, the thing is that you don't go out and start rubbing these people's face in the dirt or mocking them. You have respect and honor for these men and women who are respecting you and your rights, not privileges. But like I said, the main thing, there's a lot of us that are lawful in this country, and there's a lot of us that are legal. And trust me, I can actually prove this. I wrote the structure, and it's been turned in the federal Supreme Court, and for record, it is certified in the record. But see, the point is, we're not supposed to be arguing with one another. All these people out there are protesting. Protesting what? See, that's the one thing I always, stuns me, how people are out in the street protesting, and whether you're protesting. How come you're not sitting there writing your affidavits and filing and claiming your assets? How come you're not claiming your land or soil? Because you don't want land, because land is, the sky above your land, the earth above, the air above you. You don't want the earth above you. Oh, yes, you do. Earth. That depends on the way you are at that point. Don't want to go that way. But the sky above your soil that you're on today. It is comprehending how to step out of the movie, watch the production, how all these things do. But that's the one thing. They don't want you to know how to question jurisdiction. Because you start questioning their jurisdiction, they get scared. And that's the one thing. We want these men and women to honor their oath of office. Once they're honoring their oath of office and they're virtually complying with their servitude, public employment. Remember, these men and women are public servants, public employees. So once you start realizing this, we can do this. And it's like when you sit there and it's like we put up that ship, and I don't know if we can put it up now on the YouTube channel, but it would be nice. But that ship in Florida, the building, it's not the first public building that's been built like a ship. And we're all dealing with this frustration, a terrorization of foreign country coming into our country, dictating to us how to live. And once we stop living the deal where somebody else is dictating to you how to live in your own home, like I said, that's like immigrants coming into this country. Coming into this country say, I have a right now. I can tell you how to live in your home. We got these people that are Muslims. And people are going, well, Muslims have rights. No, Muslims do not have rights in the United States. They don't. 1952 Immigration Act, the true structure. If you go back beside the 1952 Administration Act, you go back to Thomas Jefferson. He's the one who passed the administrative rule that, what was that? Formed the United States Navy and Marines to go after these men and women who were murdering your, bloodline of this country. Bloodline does have a lot of things in this country, support of this country. But when you are arguing that in a court proceeding, you can't argue that in a court proceeding. Because you have to challenge the jurisdiction. You have to know what court system you're going into. You have to know what the system is that they're trying to imply on you. You have to know what the clerk is filing in that paperwork. You want to make sure that when you go in these domestic terrorist courtrooms, you want to make sure that they have the paperwork that says that you are not of their system. So you have to file this stuff. And nobody else is going to do it. Your public servants are not going to do this stuff because they make a living on this. And if you're making a living on this, why would you educate somebody to take away your funding? See, that's what sort of stuns me, where a lot of people go in this direction, and it's like, you have to realize, what the circumstances of this country is truly about. You have to realize what you're standing for, what grounds you're standing on, who you're standing for. If you're standing for another country, get out of here. We don't want you. I am proud that we do have some foreigners that have come in this country, and one of them is Lorenzo. He's out there fighting for your rights. I'm impressed with this immigrant. He is an immigrant. He has no problem. He's been very blunt and open with me, admitting to it. This is the immigrants that we want in our country, because he's out there doing this. And like I said, I appreciate that. We got the ship being shown again. We'll be working on this to get the other ships around the country, because there's more than one ship building on this stuff. And once people realize the court systems and how these things are done, how these things are truly circumcised, and these things, circumcised. So that's the one thing, is when you stop fighting yourself on these issues and start accepting what the truth says. I'm living today. I'm looking at what's going on today in front of us. I'm looking at, how do you defend your child from the system? How do you defend your circumstances of what you're living right now today to protect your bloodline? Because nobody else is going to protect your bloodline, folks. You have to protect your own bloodline. You got to remember, most of these people are out for personal and financial gain. They don't care for you. They don't love you. They don't want you. Of course, they're always sweet and polite to your face because they want to keep their employment. And that is the truth. They care about their employment. They don't care about anything else. So once people start looking at the truth here, accepting these facts instead of running around in circles, we do have a future. And the one thing that I do like, when you look at the photograph on this Florida courthouse, the grass setup is just like a wave. Just like the wave. So how can you go wrong when you look at this stuff and you go into it, and it says it right there in their own entrance, their own structure? I've had conversations with, the big players of the state of Oregon been up there, where they have told me, when I was investment up there, let's just say. You walk in these courtrooms, this is what's going on, and it's like, oh my God, is this a fact? See, that is the one thing, that you have to look at this stuff. You have to bring these facts to the table. And that's what you want to do, is bring the facts to the table. You want to be able to be having proper education. And if you don't have proper education, who's going to have it for you? You. See, I listen to too many people out there asking for pro bono attorneys. And you give them the information. Oh, no, I can't comprehend it. I'm stupid. No, it tells me they're lazy and they don't love their children. And that's exactly the way I look at it. That's exactly the way I take it. How else is somebody supposed to take it when people are out there not cooperating? How else are you supposed to, bring the facts and evidence forward? See, that is the one thing that people have to comprehend these things. And when you comprehend these things and you're bringing this stuff out, it is a lifesaver, It is one of those things that are bringing out there to bring the circumstances for you to stand up for you and your bloodline. Remember, this is for your bloodline. If you have children in this country, how do you expect them to live? How do you expect them to have a future if you're not standing up for their future? How are you expecting them to survive when you're not here, when you haven't taught them how to challenge jurisdiction? You haven't taught them how to do the research. Remember, the schools are not teaching your children that stuff because they want them programmed little soldiers. And also, too, if you are not aware of, all military personnel, what is that? All military personnel has a minimum $3 million life insurance up to $30 million, depends on your position, of the military insurance on them. Of course, they're not going to tell you that because they don't want to pay you. They want that money to go back into the military defense fund. True. They do have it. True. It is that way. So once people start comprehending how the circumstances around them are real. This is how these people get away with it. Literally how these men and women get away with it. And so it's up to us to stop this. This is why we put this education show out there for you guys. So that way we can get the information out to you. When we do get the other information that's provided to us, we want to be able to verify this stuff and present it to you, bring it out. Because it's up to you to do this for your bloodline. And so I'm going to open up the floor because, the one thing, too, is you got to realize that if you hire an attorney, you give your rights over to the court. You are saying you're an incompetent child. Doesn't matter how old you think you are. You're telling the court you're an incompetent child. You can't defend yourself. You're not able to think. You don't have a free-thinking brain. And that's what the courts mean. That's what all this stuff means. So once you comprehend this stuff, it starts putting these things together so simple, so easy. Life is easy, but these guys make it difficult for personal financial gain. So anyhow, let's see if anybody else would like to throw some thoughts in here, so I'm not just going on and on and on, because we would like to get some responses into this. So why don't we open up the floor?
All participants are unmuted.
Yeah, Ed?
Yep.
Another word for the birth certificate is the ship certificate. The birth ship certificate.
Isn't that considered a manufacturer state of origin?
Yeah, you could say that. Anyway, that was. I just thought I'd throw that in for now.
No, I appreciate that.
I got a question for you, Ed.
Go ahead.
If you look at the railing of a courtroom, the bar.
Yep.
Doesn't that remind you of a pirate ship railing along the edge of the pirate ship?
Like what they have in the movies? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're basically saying that's the captain and all them is on the other side of the bar, the railing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you step over there, you're getting ready to, walk the plank.
Or go to war, yeah. And that's a fact too. And the other part that the other gentleman brought forward, yes, it is a manufacturer state of origin ship. It's like when you go and purchase a new covered wagon or vehicle or whatever you want to call it, and we have the other administrative rules for that stuff too. But when you're purchasing a new transport, It's a manufacturer state of origin structure. So you want to make sure that you get the manufacturer state of origin for your new vessel. Because if you look at the definition of a vehicle or motor carriage, it is defined in their structure as a vessel. And they even classify your living body as a vessel. So that's one thing that always stuns me, how people don't see the truth that's right in front of their face. That's why the one movie I love, I recommend highly, is Interstate 60. I recommend people watch that twice. I was just talking to a gentleman, early this afternoon, and I asked him, "Did you ever see that movie?" He goes, "No, never even heard of it." I said, "Oh, you got to watch it twice with your better half. You'll explain a lot of stuff." You know, when you watch that, that explains a lot of stuff to people. So, and that's the one thing that people don't get. And so, like when you're paying income tax, property taxes, those are gift tax to the Queen of England and the Vatican. And those gift tax, the Vatican passes down to the church. Remember, all religions are under one side of the roof of the churches. Because you have to get the church's permission to do anything. That I do know. When I was registered as a reverend, I would get messages dictating to me how I should run my congregation. And that really does happen. And a lot of people think that it doesn't happen. It truly does happen in that way. So you have to sit there and decipher these things that are going on that we're living with. And once we start, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, now, which would you do first? Remember we talked about vacating the seat because they're a private corporation.
Right.
Would you file the demurrer first, or file the FAR Act of 1938?
File the FAR Act first. And if they can't prove it, then you file the other one, and it's easier to unseat them that way.
Okay.
Because, see, you want them to prove that they're registered, and if they're not registered, remember, it's a federal crime, and it's a mandatory prison if they're not registered. Isn't that what Comey is fighting right now? Looking at, they said 25 years. They came out, I think it was CBS or NBC came out and said he's looking at 25 years just for that.
Yes.
I mean, that was all over the mainstream media in the last couple of days. So that's what I would go first. And then when you do that and you file on them, make sure you include the email to the 3 departments that I believe I sent to you as well. And you include the email to all those departments that they're involved in. And you put in it that you're requesting an investigation on their non-filing, basically committed treason. And you ask the question to the Department of Justice, are they committing treason? So you ask them. You don't say they are. You ask them to define it. Go ahead.
So then the same thing with the doctors, but then there's going to be, I mean, you wouldn't file a demurrer, but then if they're not licensed and they haven't registered, then but then they're making medical decisions. How do you go about? Yeah, but you got to remember, a license doesn't mean doggy doer in the medical profession, because it's the same thing as an attorney. They write their own. Yeah, I know they write their own. But the thing is that I know you follow the FAR Act for them also, just as you would for a judge or a lawyer or a cop. Mm-hmm. But then now, these people are dealing with someone's life. How would you handle them? Well, that depends if they actually harm somebody or not.
Say, and if they're about to give vaccination shots, you want them to prove the chemicals in the vaccinations, and you want them to sign notarized public paper that says they're liable. Of course, none of them will do that, so, hey, they can't get the shots. So you want them to sign the liability on it. Just like having attorneys that are defending the state of the school system. Have them sign that you want it, and they keep going after you. Then you file on them threatening your life, threatening your child life. Because they are virtually threatening your life, telling you if you don't get this, you're going to have this problem. Correct?
Okay. Yes.
So you want to file on them on that. So once they get that, you know, these people start running, and then you always, when you do, if you ever serve a physician, you always want their medical insurance and bond, because they are no different. They have to have an insurance bond as a physician. Hey, they wrote it. That's what their administrative rules say they have to have. You know, we're fighting that. I'm fighting that in my county, where they're saying even the district attorney, the judges says we don't need to have insurance bonds, and we have this on recording for the last 3.5 years. When they do, when they have to. But it's, you know, I mean, been involved with some individuals trying to get them to go back on things so we could get some things resolved. You know, they're off in their own little world. They're like everybody else, you know, let's go bury our head in the sand. So long as that they're not on our doorstep, we're not going to bother them. And then when they're on the doorstep, everybody's out yelling and screaming again. And it's disturbing when people do that. You know, when these people start coming to your door and demanding things, or emailing you, or sending you letters demanding things, you want to be able to produce that immediately. Immediately. And then you want to also do, you could even challenge the jurisdiction of a physician that he's claiming he has a right to this. What jurisdiction gives you that right? I mean, these are things that we don't think about on the average, and a lot of people don't think about. Because the physician is putting, I mean, like I said, I've been battling the physicians dealing with my medical situation that was technically not, technically, whatever, it wasn't even my fault. You know, and then I had the police department after I put a bill in, I had a bill, what was that, Senate Bill 803, putting back our subsistence hunting and fishing rights to bloodline Americans. The Democrats stacked it so bad. Then they accused me of trying to do a swindle on them, which that didn't work. You know, and so there was a lot of stuff that happened with that. And so the bill, you know, it got moved, but it had hearings, but it never got past the hearings. And so then they went ahead and they wrote this new administrative structure up. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to go out to the people, and I'm putting a ballot title together. I wrote a ballot title for it. And then all of a sudden, I'm being physically attacked by these men, you know, trying to beat me to death for putting back our rights, the local police department here in Newport. And so, I mean, there's videotapes of me having guns shoved in my face from the cops. And, you know, I mean, I've been driving down the road, and I get pulled over. Next thing you know, I got guns shoved in my face telling me, Ed, back off. Don't do this. You're barking up the wrong tree. It's like, you know, what do you think? You're going to intimidate a guy that's walking dead? You know, that's the way I look at it. I've been dead twice by their certification. So, I mean, why are we afraid of our own shadows? That's the point. We get taught to teach fear instead of teaching responsibility in life. So, but definitely, yes, write these letters, get them out there. When you do it, make sure they're certified letters. At least get them notarized. And a lot of people say, don't get them notarized because it's their system. You're going in their system. It's like when I send certified mail, I use the green card because I'm dealing with foreign agents. Of course I'm going to use their green card because they have to have a green card to have employment. And when a foreigner or an immigrant in this country comes, doesn't an immigrant have to have a green card to work? So you're sending them a green card for their employment. I mean, it is the way we look at things and the way we present things. It's the way the world works. I mean, these things that are in front of us are designed for us to put together to make sure that our bloodline and those around us. And it's like the other gentleman brought up. It's a manufacturer state of origin. Birth certificate. It's like a ship. They have to have a manufacturer state of origin on a ship. When you get, even buy a pillow. Or well, here's a good one. Mattresses. When you buy a mattress, they have a manufacturer state of origin. Then they have the tag on it that says, if you cut this tag, it's a federal crime. You can go to prison for cutting this tag on the bed that you bought. Wait a minute. Whose bed is it? Mine or yours? If I cut this off, you're gonna go after me. So whose is it? So he thinks that people don't step back and look at, if that makes sense. I always find it hilarious that on the beds they have that tag that says, if you cut this tag off, you're going to jail. And that's why I like to ask people, whose bed is it? Is it yours or theirs? Is it the states, the federal government? But it doesn't say anything on that. It just says if you cut this tag, you can go to jail. So, and I cut the tags off. Who cares? It's my mattress. I own it. It's like me. I own me. I filed to own me. So, and that's the one thing that most people don't comprehend, that one. I claim my rights. I don't ask permission. Going to church, of course I really don't go anymore. And eventually, who knows, I might start doing my own church on my property again like I did at one point. But see, that's the point that, it's knowing what you're being instructed, and if you know the term of instructed, and what you're being educated on. And who's protecting who? And that's the one thing that people don't realize, who is protecting who. When it even comes to your bloodline. I'm not into, it's like, I had a conversation with somebody that brought up a point, and let me make it publicly clear. I do not support gay lifestyle or anything dealing with gay opinions. But then again, hate to admit it, the Constitution says men and women are equal. So I don't have to tolerate them. I don't have to accept it. I will not tolerate it. And that's one thing we got to get out of our schools is this stuff. It shouldn't be tolerated in our schools. We shouldn't be allowing our children into this structure that is going on. And religion is mind control when it really comes down to it. I've been involved in religion. I've been involved on both sides. When you're sitting down and reading stuff, a lot of people interpret what they think it means. That's like, you're not a judge. You're not a lawyer. You're not one of these corporation members, so you can't interpret. You have to go by facts. And don't forget that, the Pope is trying to claim that he owns all the banks in the world. So religion is claiming that they own you. And they're trying to claim that off the Treaty of 1213, which is hogwash to me. Literally hogwash to me. See, that treaty is from England. Magna Carta, from England. That's why the first thing I suggest people do is challenge jurisdiction. Newborn child, claim that birth certificate. You know, you have 30 days that they say you have to file it with the state. So it gives you 30 days to put your affidavit to claim ownership of that bloodline. And let me tell you, they're not going to go against that because they have to deal with it too. And even the law says you have to own your child. You don't have to do it. Even Rand Paul even came out and said the parents own their child. And not only that, the Ninth Circuit Court that we have, the court case that just came out January 27, 2018, clearly states if you claim that bloodline, you own that child. Ninth Circuit Court came out, Federal Circuit Court came out and said, you claim that child, you own it.
Ed.
Go ahead.
Send me that case, please.
Oh, yeah. So, this is the point that people have got to realize if you're going to do that. You know, I still got to get back a hold of Rand Paul because he's got some other stuff that his secretary was supposed to send me on that information, too.
Can I throw something in here about the Magna Carta?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Magna Carta was brought here and installed as law of the land because we had no courts in 1600s. Everything was supposed to be trial by jury. And the grand jury was supposed to be we the people. That was placed in the Constitution. I've got actual documents from law colleges that state that is the lawful courts of this nation. Okay, not the courts that are running now. If the grand jury, there was one of them. I got to find it. The guy that wrote it was a law professor for, I think it was Harvard, and he stated in there that not even an employee of the government, of any of the three branches of government, may sit on those juries, let alone have any control or authority over them.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of people don't realize it. The real difference between trial with jury and trial by jury. Trial by jury is strictly the jury. Trial with jury is where that judge sitting up there. I got a book from the early 1800s before the Civil War, and it clearly states that same fact too.
Yeah, and that's the one thing we've got to get our structure set up because we get it up on talk shows. Oh shit, what was that? 12 years ago. 12, 14 years ago, and I was publicly questioning how come elected and public servants are allowed and contractors are allowed to even vote, let alone be on a jury, but public employees should not be allowed to vote, period. Because all they do is vote for themselves for their pay raises when it comes down to it. And they argue about who's going to get the money that's split up by the dividends, and you have to comprehend when they pass these bills, these funding bills, they want to keep that money in their bank accounts, in their playing field. They don't want to spend the money. It's like, they have it where I think it's like $300 million for the disabled, just in the state of Oregon, that is supposed to go to the disabled. Oh, what do? They put all these new damn programs in, and, we need to have employees to run these new programs, so the money that is supposed to go to the disabled and elderly, personally to them in a check, not direct deposit, checks, that's the way it's originally written, and we're supposed to get that money, and the employees are not, but they have kept that money in their pocketbook, and we're the ones being shortchanged.
Well, that's like the collected undistributed child support funds. They're sitting in every state.
Yes. That's under Title IV.
Yep, and they're committing welfare fraud and embezzlement and grand theft by keeping them, because they're supposed to be coming out here to pay the debt off, to take care of the dependents under the Social Security Act.
Right.
But they're not doing that.
No, and they're pocketing that money. They're taking the money that's supposed to go to the kids and pocketing into, what do they call that? Foster care parents. Oh, can't forget the other one. What are those idiots that they call for the courts that are supposed to defend the children? when you go to court.
Guardian ad litem.
Yeah. And then
Guardian
they say the
ad
guardian
litem.
ad litem don't get paid. Don't believe that stuff. They do too. That's a blatant lie.
Yep. I'll tell you another secret. You know what? We found this out a long time ago. These lawyers for these kids in these courts, and the mother has a lawyer from the court and all this stuff. People, you need to start doing the Freedom of Information Act and finding out what these people are getting paid.
Yeah.
They're not filing. We got a lady down here in Florida, but they got her kid, a grandkid, and the lawyer never filed a piece of paper, never offered an objection. They all just sat there, right, in the courtroom, or the smile on their face. Yeah, because they were getting $900 a friggin' damn hour to come to court. And when she started doing Freedom of Information Act, they started having heart attacks.
And that's the one thing that people don't realize, how much these public pretenders truly get paid. They think that they only get, like, they come out and say, we only get $3,500 for a case, and that's it. Bullshit. You know, these men and women lie through their teeth for their and your personal gain. Your personal gain is pain. Their personal gain. Go ahead.
If you learn how to write the proper Freedom of Information Acts, and you start getting these Freedom of Information Acts, these people, and start asking the right questions, all right, believe me, you're going to have to buy them toilet paper because they have heart attacks. We did one on a lawyer down here. The lady was suing the police department for X amount of dollars. Okay? We did the Freedom of Information Act. She thought nothing would come of it. They actually sent back the actual invoices from the lawyer that they paid, okay? And it was 9 times what that woman was asking. Now, think about what I just said. Let's say it's $1,000, or actually more than that. They paid that lawyer $9,000, or 9 times what she was asking, okay?
Yep.
To fight that case. And that case is still going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me, the mayor of that city, when he found out about that, he was not a happy camper, especially when she threatened to expose it to the newspaper.
See, that's what disturbs me. Don't threaten, do it.
Well, she's working on it right now, believe me.
Well, see, that's the one point. When people threaten that gives them time to regroup.
There's no regroup. We got the document from them that they sent to her, how much they paid this lawyer, and how much the lawsuit is for. And it is 9 times what she was asking for. They paid that lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So you all need to start learning how to do these Freedom of Information Acts.
Yeah, that's the one thing that people have got to start doing, that stuff, as well as not be afraid of their own shadow. Because remember the saying, the shadow knows, and remember, usually you're the shadow.
I'll tell you a secret about the Freedom of Information Acts. When
Okay,
you send it to one of these, send it to one of these agencies, try to do it by email, okay, and send it to your governor as well.
Yeah.
That gets them off their butts real quick.
Yeah, no, I comprehend that. We're trying to do that with some things here in Oregon, but they're terrified of what's going on because the governor's trying to cover up. The governor of Oregon just got nailed for siphoning public funds into her account.
They're all doing it.
Well, we know that, but, you know, I haven't seen it out with other states doing it that have publicized it. You know, so, I mean, she got nailed. And so I wrote the treason charges on Kate Brown, which sort of stuns me. Nobody's reacting on it, and the state attorney general sleeps with her. So it's like one of those things that what's happening. You know, so it is disgusting of what these people are doing to the children in the community here.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Oh, so
We're working right now. We sent them Freedom of Information Act to DCF in Florida. We want to know how much they're getting per child. We want a forensic audit of how much money, where that money's coming from, how much they pay to foster care children, the foster parents, and everything else. All right? This is currently in the works right now. We're waiting to see what they say.
Send me a copy of it so we can put it up on the website so others who want to do it can do it. We take out your information of your name and the name and stuff like that, but we can put up a template on so people can start filing it.
Okay, we'll do.
More people in the party, more happier we are.
All right.
You know, because that's the whole point. Like I said, when I got this, so far the best response I got was from a military personnel that said, basically, you walk into any of these courts, you leave your constitutional rights at the door. And there is no question if, ands, or buts. It's mandatory you have no rights when you walk in that room.
Well, if you look up Army Regulations 27-10, I forget the section right now, it tells you in there plainly, okay, that these courts are non-political military tribunals.
Well, and also, too, it does say in it, too, they're maritime courts. We've got that one. We're going to be putting that one out here pretty soon. So it depends on what court you go in. That's what I'm saying. You have to challenge the jurisdiction of the court of what court you're going in.
Well,
Go ahead, may I?
Okay, I'm reading out of Black's Law. Law of the Flag, 1865. Maritime law. The law of the country whose flag is flown by a particular vessel where it is registered. That country's laws govern the ship's internal affairs. Bakula versus Sedidio or whatever. This is another one. Flag, state control, 1975. Maritime law. The exercise of authority by a state over vessels that fly under its flag to ensure compliance with domestic and international safety and environmental laws and regulations. And it goes on. So, flat out, these law dictionaries continually say it's maritime law, maritime law, maritime law.
OVA says the same thing.
Yeah. So, it's maritime law. Anyway, that's all I got to say for now.
And don't forget, the British brought the army over in that the same army that fought that Wounded Knee came from England. On the structure of it, came over on a ship. You know, that's the one thing that we're all fighting this crazy stuff about this, that, and the other thing. The thing is that we need to start putting the challenge of jurisdiction and shutting these courts down. And then the other thing is always file, if you ever pay the courts, file a 1099 form. Make sure you file it with the IRS, because if they never filed their claim on taxes, they're mandatorily shut down, because if they don't pay their taxes, that's the only reason why they have a commercial account.
And that's just what we were talking about.
Huh?
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Duty of the flag. Historically, a maritime ceremony by which a foreign vessel, gee, isn't that something? The vessel, the birth certificate vessel. A maritime ceremony by which a foreign vessel struck her flag and lowered her topsail upon meeting the British flag. The ceremony was an acknowledgement of British sovereignty over the British seas. Remember, Britain still claims sovereignty over all the seas. Maritime flag, it's always maritime.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, they still go off the Chinese Treaty of 1809 commercial code when they started doing the opiates traveling into England. That's what gets to me about everybody going off the opiate and drugs. Shit, they've been doing that, shipping that going back to the 15th century.
Well, I just want everyone to understand the law of the flag.
Yeah, I got you.
The law of the flag says what it is. It's maritime law.
Yep.
Maritime, continually.
Why do you
It's
think a
always
lot of these?
maritime.
Well, that's why a lot of public buildings are like ships are built in, are built like even Nazi symbols. They even got them built as ghouls. If you actually look at some of the buildings, the aerial photos.
If you're going to go up the gangplank and take off on a ship somewhere, when you enter the bar, you went under the jurisdiction of the captain of the ship, and under that flag that's up there, the maritime flag. When you go into the courtroom and you enter that bar, you just went in to
the ship.
To the ship, that's right, jurisdiction of the ship. And
actually, I have that on a YouTube video with a judge on YouTube video admitting it.
Hey, there you go. There ain't none of this military stuff. It's maritime.
It's like I told the judge, I'm not coming in that deal. He goes, oh, no, Ed, you can come in. I said, I'm not entering your ship. He goes, but I'm requesting you. I don't care what you request. The minute I cross that bar, I'm screwed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I've had these conversations with these judges over the last 6 years, and that's why I go and I recommend people take their video recorders and they say, you can't tape in here. Well, if it's for public record, I can do that. If I can't tape, then why am I here?
Okay, anyway, I rest my case. Law of the flag, duty of the flag, Black's Law, 10th, and there's much more on the maritime flag. It's page after page after page for jurisdiction. That's all I have to say. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So, but it is looking back to the structure of what people are claiming. I mean, you have to realize that the British were trying to claim all the seas going back to basically the 14th, 13th, 14th century when they started crossing the ocean and claiming things. So I always love it when people say Columbus came to America. Well, there is no evidence that Columbus came here. And how come we're celebrating a Columbus Day, a Spanish-British religion day, when they never came here? So this is what stuns me with people. They don't get it. They don't get the structure of what they're claiming. So it's so important that when you get a summons to question it. You know, I realized a couple of years ago, because I had a $50 million lawsuit going against the city of Toledo. And a so-called friend of mine who was an attorney that I worked with and was working on a couple projects and up at the Capitol. And then next thing you know, I'm being summoned to be on a federal grand jury. And I'm like, I got a federal court case. How come I'm getting summons to be on a jury when I've got a $50 million court case in this building? And that's what stunned me. And then when you look at that, and when you look at the judge, it's the same damn judge that was who dismissed my case when they tried to come after me again, is the same damn judge that the Bundys had. And what the hell is her name? The one that was screwing up their case and writing their false documents going after them. So they just like the local courts, they have their people positioned to diffuse you, because when they know you're right, they don't want you to have the facts to be right. So, and that's the whole point of getting the jurisdiction out there, questioning what they're doing. And that's why I'm looking for Southern for you to send me that, because I want to make sure that gets public, because I will definitely personally use that myself to go after them, because I want to do that going back after their budget again, because I definitely want to get some of their budget, because I know where some of the money's hidden. I have a concept of how to do it, but I need to do it correctly so that way I could turn that door, the lock on that door to get the information. Because, I mean, the one thing is that apparently I have an intriguing reputation around the state buildings, I'm told. I mean, it's like every time I get involved in certain cases, especially children cases in the state, you know, everybody goes, hey, everybody at the DH office knows about you, Ed. Doesn't matter where they are in the state. You know, I've gone around the state of Oregon picking up kids right from the DH office at times for senators and House of Representatives. I just walk in and do what I do. I've served of it, and next thing you know, the kid is served. The kid is dropped off at the doorstep sometimes at these people's houses. You know, so, and I mean literally on his doorstep. We had one child I went after and served a DHS director. And the following morning, the kid was literally dropped in the street in front of his house, a 5-year-old kid, dropped off in the street at his home. So, I mean, these things do work. But the main point is challenging jurisdiction, and if you guys have challenge jurisdiction and file in the Supreme Court, federal. And you want to make sure you get the judge's oath. You have to know what oath they took. Was it Constitution or the corporation? And the corporation oath, I got to tell you, is maritime to the British government. It even says it on the backside of the oath. They have a watermark on some of these things, too. And you ask for the watermark, too. Because when you get some government checks, they have watermarks on the checks, and they do have that on some of their oaths, too. So it is, when you do a request, ask them, I always suggest asking for the watermark with their oath, too. And people don't think about that one, but they actually do. So, and I don't have the watermark memorized, the meaning, so I can't just tell you that right off the bat, but a week from Saturday, we'll have that one done. But like I said, next Saturday and Sunday, we're going to do a repeat of the show tonight and last night. We'll just repeat this weekend for next weekend. Because like I said, I've been doing this for 4 years, every week for 4 years, and this is the first time I'm literally taking a break. But the circumstances is I need to take the break for the circumstances that needs to be done. So this is one of those things. So, but anyhow, I'm looking at where we're at this point. It's getting close to 7. So if anybody else got something they like to bring in? Nope. Well, if nobody else has got something in, why don't we just look at wrapping it up and then meet a week from Saturday back here again? Okay. Well, with that one, well, I'll just say, with that, let the Great Spirit and Mother Earth bless you. Bring your food and blessings, and may the Creator look over you.
Thank you, Ed. It is currently May 27th, 2018. It is a Sunday. And all those who are listening after the show, because they're off doing their Memorial Weekend stuff with family, these shows have been informative. For those who have joined us while it's live, thank you very much. Hopefully it enlightened you a little bit. And please catch up with us on not next Saturday and Sunday, but the Saturday and Sunday afterwards. We will be doing, as Ed said, a rerun of these shows this weekend for next weekend, because Ed has important matters to take care of, and he won't be able to be here. So that's about it, guys. Thank you for listening and watching, and have a good night.